In this presentation, we'll go over the terminology we use at exams, provide you with a quick overview of the Common Final Exam, or CFE, provide you with the student's perspective of the examination process, and at the end, we'll provide you with a comprehensive troubleshooting guide. At the exam, you'll likely hear the following terms. Surpass is a software that we use to develop and administer the exams. Secure Client is a software downloaded by the exam writers prior to the exam, which allows them to write their exam in a secure environment. This software prevents exam writers from doing many things, including exiting the exam while writing, taking screenshots, or recording their screen. The fundamental difference between Surpass and Secure Client is that Surpass is the back end of the software, whereas Secure Client is the front end that exam writers have access to. At the exam, you'll also hear the term reference material. The reference material exam writers have access to is the CPA Handbook and Tax Act. These documents can be accessed by an exam writer by clicking the reference material button that is present on all of their case tabs. Invigilator is synonymous with proctor, and it refers to the person hired to monitor exam writers and ensure that the rules of the examination are enforced. An IT Invigilator is somebody who monitors exam writers, but also assists them in the event that they experience technical difficulties during their exam. Finally, the exam supervisor is either a CPA Ontario staff member or somebody chosen by CPAO to be in charge of a particular examination center. These are individuals you should inform if you experience any serious issues at the exam. Serious issues include students losing their work as a result of an IT issue, cheating, medical issues, or anything you deem to be pertinent information. If you are unclear who the exam supervisors are at your exam, be sure to ask. The students writing the exams on September 11th, 12th, and 13th are writing the final exam for a program they have been in for 2 to 6 years. For a lot of students, passing this exam is critical for their career. As a result of this, some students may be nervous or panic if they have a technical issue. As an IT Invigilator, it is your job to be calm and help students as quickly as possible using the materials provided in this presentation. The Common Final Exam, or CFE, is 3 days long, so students will be writing each day. On day 1, students will be writing a single 4-hour case. There are 2 versions of this case. Version 1 is a case called Marmani Incorporated, and version 2 is a case called Heartbreak Estate, Vineyard and Winery, but students often refer it using the acronym. On day 2, students will be writing a single 5-hour case, and on day 3, students will be writing 3 cases over the course of 4 hours. On day 2 and 3, all students will be writing the same cases. All of these cases are completed in Secure Client. In this section of the presentation, we'll cover the examination process from the perspective of a student under the assumption that they don't experience any issues. I'll cover the issues that students may experience during the exam in the troubleshooting section of this presentation. When candidates first enter the examination hall, they need to find the seat that has a label with their candidate ID on it. After they find their seat, they will need to connect to the Wi-Fi and launch Secure Client. If candidates do not connect to the Wi-Fi, they will not be able to enter the exam, so be sure to remind them as they're setting up. If Secure Client doesn't open right away, tell the student to be patient. Secure Client can sometimes take 15 to 30 seconds to open. They'll be stuck on this screen right here. After an exam writer launches Secure Client, they'll be taken to the screen where they can enter their key code. This key code will be on the label with their candidate ID on them. IT proctors should tell candidates to enter their key code and click the OK button as soon as possible. After passing the key code screen, exam writers will be asked to confirm their identity. Exam writers should be the one confirming this. IT proctors should never press confirm on behalf of the student, because sometimes we have had students that have sat in the wrong seat. So this is where you'd catch it right here. So they'd have the wrong name. After confirming their identity, exam writers will be required to confirm that they adhere to the CPA Code of Conduct. On the live exam, this page looks a little different than the screenshot here and requires you to fully scroll down. There'll be a scroll bar right here. So you have to scroll down before you'll be able to confirm. After agreeing to the CPA Code of Conduct, exam writers will be taken to the Enter PIN screen. This is where candidates wait until the PIN is announced by the exam supervisor at the start of the examination. In the event that a candidate does not hear the PIN or arrives at the exam center after the exam starts, IT proctors are provided with the exam PIN. Just note that it is paramount that students are not provided with the exam PIN prior to the start of the exam. When students get into the exam, they'll be taken to their first case tab. For day 1 and 2, students will only have this one case tab. But on day 3, students will have 3 case tabs. So they'll have 1, 2, and 3. Students will be able to switch between cases by either clicking on the tabs or clicking the next button at the bottom of the screen. It's just cut off here in the screenshot. There'll be a next button right down here. On every case tab, candidates will be able to open up their reference material by clicking this button right here. Below the reference material, students will be able to open up Word by clicking the Word Processor button and Excel by clicking the Spreadsheet button. Note that it can take up to 10 seconds for these two programs to open for the first time, but they almost instantly open and close after that. Once a student is finished their exam, they can click the Finish Test button up at the top right to finalize their exam. IT proctors should not use this button. If a candidate has done their exam, you should advise them to click on it themselves, because once a student finishes their exam, there's no way to get them back in. So be sure not to click this unless a student is 100% done their exam. After clicking the Finalize button, candidates will be asked to confirm that they wish to submit their exam twice. Let the student click these buttons themselves, as again, we cannot get them back into the exam after they have finalized. After submitting the exam, the student should receive this message right here. If a student's files weren't successfully uploaded to our server, Secure Client would display a different message. I'll cover what to do in that case during the troubleshooting section of this presentation. In this section of the presentation, I'll cover best practices, the processes you will need to follow during an exam, and go over the solutions to some of the more common issues students experience. Prior to the exam, candidates are instructed to download the most current version of Secure Client and verify that it is functioning properly on their laptop by completing a test exam. All candidates writing exams in September should have the version 12.019.149.128 of the software. Despite this requirement, some students show up at the exam with the wrong version of the software. So it is the job of the IT proctors to verify that students have the correct version as they prepare to write their exam. If a student does not have the correct version of the software, IT proctors should uninstall the software and reinstall it using one of the installer keys that will be provided to them. If a student has a firm-issued laptop without the permissions to install the software on their computer, IT proctors should inform an exam supervisor and have them decide whether the student will be required to handwrite their exam or whether a backup will be provided to them. At our exams, we do not allow Windows computers with operating systems older than Windows 7, Apple computers of any kind, even if they're running boot camp versions of Windows, or laptops with detachable keyboards such as Surface Pro laptops. If a student shows up with a laptop that does not meet our requirements, please inform an exam supervisor. If you're required to uninstall Secure Client, you can do this by going to Add or Remove Programs on your computer and install Secure Client from your list of programs on there. After you're done doing that, you can then navigate to the Surpass folder using this pathway here and delete that folder. So delete the Surpass folder. After you're done doing that, you can then reinstall Secure Client by using one of the USBs available to you at the exam that look exactly like this. And then you can run the MSI file called Secure Client Driver Installer. After you've done that, that will reinstall the software. We also have Wi-Fi adapters available to our IT proctors at our exam centers. At our Toronto centers, we want to ensure that as many students as possible are connected to our 5G network. Students will be provided with the password to our 5G network on their desk, but not all computers have a Wi-Fi card capable of connecting to it. If a student has problems connecting to the Wi-Fi, they typically are trying to connect to our 2.4 network using the password for a 5G network. So if a student's having an issue with the Wi-Fi, first check to see if our 5G network is listed on their computer. If it is, you can just connect them to it. But if it isn't, you should try using a Wi-Fi adapter to connect them to it. IT proctors will be given the password to the 2.4 network in the event that you can't get a Wi-Fi adapter to work, but it is best practice to get as many students as possible onto the 5G network. If the drivers for the Wi-Fi adapter don't automatically download, then you can find drivers for the Wi-Fi adapter on the same USB that has the MSI file for Secure Client. So for Windows 10, getting the Wi-Fi adapters set up is really easy. The drivers should automatically install after plugging the Wi-Fi adapter into a USB port. After waiting approximately 15 seconds for the drivers to download, you should see a drop down at the top of their list of Wi-Fi networks. If you select Wi-Fi 2 from this drop down, you should be able to see and connect to our 5 GHz network. Now, if the drivers don't automatically download, it's a little bit more complicated. In this case, you should search the candidate's computer for system and check to see what operating system they're running and whether they have a 32, 64, or 86-bit processor. In this example, this computer has a Windows 7 operating system, as you can see here, and it's got a 64-bit processor. You'll need to remember this for when you actually install the drivers. So after doing that, you can open up the device manager on their computer, and under other devices, the Wi-Fi adapter should be listed as 802.11 AC NIC. You want to right-click on this and select Update Driver, and then navigate to the USB containing the drivers. After you've done that, choose the driver that matches the information you found in step 1. So Windows 7 64-bit for this computer in this example. So you'd click the Windows 7 64-bit folder, click OK, and the drivers will download. Once the driver has been installed, it's really similar to when the drivers automatically install. You just click Wi-Fi 2 on that drop-down, and you should be able to see the 5 GHz network. If you experience any issues installing the drivers at this point, you can just connect the student to the 2.4 network. Just note that you should not tell the password for this network to students because you want to ensure as many students as possible are on the 5G. If an exam writer experiences a technical issue, such as freezing during the exam, you may need to take them out of Secure Client. The ideal way to do this is by holding down Control, Alt, B, and L, which will produce a pop-up asking you if you wish to exit the software. In some cases, this doesn't work, and you'll need to press Control-Alt-Delete and log out. If neither Control-Alt-BL or Control-Alt-Delete work, you will need to perform a hard reboot, which is done by holding down the power button until the laptop powers off. Prior to getting the student back into the software, IT proctors are required to take a backup of their exam files by zipping the clients folder, which you can do by navigating to the pathway on this slide or by right-clicking Secure Client and selecting Open File Location and scrolling up to the clients folder. To reiterate, zipping the clients folder is required every time you take a candidate out of Secure Client during their exam. After navigating to Secure Client CPA folder, you can zip the clients folder by right-clicking it, hovering over the Send To option and selecting Compressed Folder. After zipping the folder, rename it to include their candidate ID and course and drag it onto one of the blank USBs provided to you as part of your IT package. After this is done, you can then get the candidate back into their exam. If they're not missing work, you can disregard the zip clients folder on your USB. But if they are missing work, you need to provide the USB to an exam supervisor so they can decrypt their exam responses and provide it back to them. I'll now do just a quick demo of this, just so this is 100% clear. It sounds way more complicated than it really is. So this right here is Secure Client. So this is what students will open to enter their exam. And to get to the clients folder, you just right-click it, click Open File Location, scroll up, and this is the clients folder right here. So what you want to do, every single time you get a student out of Secure Client after the exam has started, you want to right-click Clients, scroll down to Send To, and click Compressed Zipped Folder. So once you click this, it'll create another folder here. So you want to put their candidate ID here. So, and then their course. So say if it was CFE Day 2, you just put CFE Day 2. And after you've done that, you just drag that onto one of your blank USBs, which would be probably in a D drive of the computer. So you just drag it over. Every time a student is taken out of their exam, IT proctors will be required to enter the resume code, which will be provided to you prior to the start of the exam. IT proctors will also be required to enter a brief explanation of why the student had to be taken out of the exam, such as Secure Client frozen or a computer crash, like in this picture here. This code should only ever be entered by the IT proctor and should never be told to students. If when getting a student back into their exam, they're not prompted for a resume code, do not let them resume on that laptop. Switch them to another backup. If this happens, please ensure to inform an exam supervisor. If a student is unable to click the Enter Key Code text box on the Enter Key Code screen, or if the screen is distorted, close Secure Client and ensure that the exam writer has their screen resolution set to between 1024 times 768 and 1600 times 900, and that their screen scaling is set to 100%. You can do this by going to their display settings through the control panel. To change the display settings, you need to search Windows for Display, scroll down until you see Scale and Layout, and ensure that their screen resolution is within the requirements. If a student gets a message saying key code is invalid with this version of the software after they try entering their key code, check to see if they have the correct Secure Client version. If they have the correct version, Secure Client likely did not install properly. A full uninstall and reinstall typically resolves this issue. If when entering their key code, a student gets a message, invalid key code, offline, you can close Secure Client, restart their computer, ensure they're connected to the internet with the Connect Automatically button checked off on the Wi-Fi, and re-enter the key code. This should resolve the issue. It's important to check off the Connect Automatically checkbox because if a student disconnects during their exam, you want the computer to try to reconnect to the network because it creates problems if a student disconnects during the exam and it doesn't automatically reconnect. If when downloading the exam, a student receives one of the error messages outlined on this slide, you have two options. One is to close Secure Client and try entering their key code again, and the second is to delete their clients folder. You should only ever consider this second option if this occurs prior to the start of the exam. You should never delete the clients folder once an exam has been started. If a student's computer freezes or crashes during the exam, an IT proctor should ask the student what they were doing prior to the computer freezing and log that information on an IT ticket. In addition, you should open the task manager and ensure that only necessary programs are running. Secure Client can also freeze and crash when students click buttons repeatedly before Secure Client gets a chance to load. So tell students to be patient, especially if they've had multiple freezes and crashes. If a student can't open their reference material or if a blank page appears when they try opening it, this is likely an issue with their Wi-Fi connection. So just get them out of Secure Client, reconnect them to the internet. During the exam, if you have to reconnect a student to the Wi-Fi, on Windows 10, this is pretty easy because you can just press Control-Alt-Delete, and then on the lock screen, there'll be a Wi-Fi button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So you can reconnect them to the internet from there. And when you do this, just make sure that they're not in airplane mode. This method, unfortunately, does not work on Windows 7 computers. For these students, you have to get them out of Secure Client, zip their clients folder, reconnect them to the Wi-Fi, and then get them back into their exam. During the exam, sometimes a student will accidentally switch their keyboard into French. Commonly, they'll notice this when they try to type a / and they get an E with an accent aigu over top of it. To resolve this issue, try pressing Control and Shift on the left side of the computer simultaneously. If this doesn't work, try pressing Alt and Shift or Control and Alt, all on the left side of the keyboard. One of those keyboard commands typically resolves this issue, but if it doesn't, you can go into their control panel and manually switch their keyboard into English. A student may receive an error message that informs them that there is a problem saving their test responses. This error message will have a continue option that IT proctors should press. After pressing continue, as ridiculous as it sounds, the IT proctor should take out their phone and take pictures of the student's work. Just take clear pictures of everything the student has written. In most cases, the student's work won't be lost, but if all else fails, at least we have something for the student. If a student clicked on quit, they will be kicked out of their exam. In this case, the IT proctor should get the student back into their exam using the resume code. If the student is missing any work, let an exam supervisor know as soon as possible. If work disappears from a student's word processor or spreadsheet, ask them what they were doing before and log it on an IT ticket. Try using the undo button to restore the data but if you're unable to recover their work, tell an exam supervisor right away. They'll be able to contact us and we'll be able to get backups of the student's work. If there is a delay between keyboard strokes and it appearing on the screen, this is typically an issue with either the student's Wi-Fi or with programs running in the background. Ensure that they're connected to a 5G network and open the task manager to ensure that all unnecessary programs are turned off. We've also seen some cases where opening the reference material after switching cases causes a crash. To resolve this, tell the student not to close the reference material, just to slide it off of their screen. They'll still be able to navigate between their cases from here with it open. If after finalizing their exam, a student gets any message other than your test has been successfully uploaded, tell the student to wait. If their test doesn't upload within 2 minutes, you can take them out of the software, ensure that they're connected to the internet, reopen Secure Client, and re-enter their key code. Re-entering their key code should push the responses to our server. Anytime you help a student during the exam, you should be filling out an exam IT support ticket. After filling out the ticket, provide it to either an IT lead or your exam supervisor. These tickets help both us and the students, as it gives us a record of which students had technical issues during the exam and how long they took to resolve. Ensure to write legibly, as these tickets are transcribed and referred back to during exam reconciliation.
Your goal as an IT proctor is to resolve technical issues as soon as possible using the information provided in this presentation. If a student's issue can't be resolved within a couple of seconds, ensure that you provide them with crash paper so they can continue writing their exam while you fix their computer. If you're unable to resolve a student's issue, you should then provide that student with a backup laptop. If they have a problem with that backup, ensure to move them to another backup rather than back to their original computer. If you can't solve a student's issue and a backup laptop is not available, then a student will be required to finish their exam on crash paper. To summarize, first, you try to fix the student's computer. Then if you're unable to fix the student's computer, you provide them with a backup. And if a backup is not available, then the student will be required to write on crash paper. But just as a reminder, when you're helping out a student, if it takes more than a couple seconds, make sure you get them crash paper right away so that they're not wasting time while you're fixing their computer.
Thank you for watching this presentation. If you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot me an email.